Good morning, friends. Good morning. Welcome to today's episode of the Checkin In podcast. My name is Binyam. Happy Monday to you all. Glad to have you joining in. Today is the 20th of December. We are in the final stretch, the final week before Christmas, but today I'm going to be talking about something that is a bit more stressful, I think, for most people who are trying to navigate this season here in the holiday season. But before we get to today's topic, I want to say glad to have you here. How was your weekend? Um, Monday is not always the happiest moment for many as they are considering going back to school or work. However, for most, this is the holiday season now. School commitments have been looked after, and so they're on a stretch of break. And so, what does that look like for you? I would love to hear. I would love to see a peek into what your world looks like. This is the podcast where we like to and hone in on an ongoing basis. Of course, those three key elements are the pillars that we resonate with on this podcast, beginning with awareness. Awareness of ourselves, who we are, how we navigate, how we get to know ourselves in this world that we are in. Number two, kindness. Kindness more specifically directed by us to us so that we can grow in a fantastic context. And finally, happiness is the final pillar. Happiness that is legitimized amongst all the other necessary emotions that help describe what's going on the inside. Those are the three key pillars that we like to talk about on this podcast. This morning, we are delving into the question. The question goes as such: how do you manage expectations during stressful holiday seasons? How do you manage expectations during stressful holiday seasons? Now, I was mentioning that we are in the final stretch of the holiday. I remember once upon a time as a kid, this was exciting times because as I reflected on the holiday, there was a lot of anticipation, there's a lot of expectations, there's a lot of looking forward to this sense of wonder of what was going to be. We're going to hang out with friends. Hello, Brandon. Good to have you here this morning. There's a lot of expectations of what this time was going to look like. There was a lot of looking forward to the presents that we were going to get that we've been long and older. However, I think there takes a different shift. A different shift with reference to what the holiday season actually does look like and the kind of ways that we make it through a holiday. And a huge part of that is this sense of expectations that we must fulfill to make it a successful holiday season. Some of those expectations, I think, look like such: making sure you have your shopping done, making sure you have um, everyone accounted for, that you feel that you're obligated to remember and buy something for. For some of you, it may have to do with cooking, baking for large numbers of people. For others of you, it might involve getting together with family members to do so. There's that component too. And still, for others, there's other stresses that are involved by way of economic factors, where in the midst of trying to fulfill your obligations, you just aren't quite certain. Hello, Julian. I'm doing well, Brandon. In the midst of all those commitments, you aren't quite sure that you are able to survive. You aren't sure you're able to survive economically, but you feel compelled to still try and make it work. And so the holiday season is the one where you are getting ready to take a dive economically because you just have to do it. It's kind of what's expected. I gotta do this even though it doesn't make sense. So, question again is, how do you manage expectations during stressful holiday seasons? I use the word expectations especially because it helps me in visualize and capture that compelling factor that you don't feel you have options. You have to do all these things and you don't feel you get a say. If you don't do these things, you feel the sense of failure. You feel the sense that you've let others down. You feel the sense that your holiday is not complete and you may have ruined other people's holiday as a result. What does that look like as you manage these expectations during the stressful holiday season? And then let's also even consider the paradox. It's a holiday where rejuvenation and yours is anything but that. You're just like, "Ugh, that isn't the nature of what my holiday looks like. My holiday is filled with stress. My holiday is filled with obligations. My holiday is filled with all this anxiety because I have to do X, Y, and Z. And it's just, you never get to enjoy what it could be. I wanted to focus on this morning as our topic, especially because we have a few days still before it's all over. And I would love for you to consider what might it look like for you to take back your holiday and actually enjoy it. Now, most people don't feel that they can enjoy their holiday because they don't feel they have options. I want us to talk about what other considerations could you factor in that enable you to enjoy something different, something of a different flavor that enables you to experience some happiness, which is the third pillar, some sense of permission that you don't have to bind yourself to all these expectations, that there are other options out there for you, as opposed to saying, I don't have any. One of the things I've often thought, and I've expressed this on the podcast, is when one feels like they have options, it goes far. Like there is this sense of flexibility and relief when you, I guess I got to go through it. When you've got options, you're like, hey, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. There's a variety of things you can apply yourself to, which is amazing. And so, what does that look like in the sense of the holiday season? How do you manage expectations during stressful holiday seasons? One thing that I do often during the holiday season is I love people watching. I like watching all those around who are trying to fulfill all of these obligations. And as I watch them, I'm also trying to gauge the kind of pressure they're under. And sometimes it's not as evident. Other times it's super evident. They're just like, there's this look in their eye where they're just feeling trapped. They're feeling like there could be something different, but they just don't know. By absolutely not buying into this narrative, this storyline that compels me to say, you have to do this. Let me say it a different way. One of the ways that I get through a stressful holiday season is I consider the expectations and the ones that I don't feel enable me to have that sense of satisfaction. I put aside. I put aside, and I've done this for years now. And my life is still kept going on. My friendships, my relationships, they continue to still be sustained because I have tapped into something a little bit more important. There's something that people sometimes say is, don't forget the reason for the season, or whatever that wants to remember that this is a celebration of the birth of Jesus. For others, they say, we want to spend time focusing on enjoying time with family. And that's the reason for why they take this holiday. It's a time to be able to spend with loved ones, to express your love to them. But does it really have to take the tone that has been presented to us, where we have to buy things for one another, where we have to spend time with people we may not necessarily enjoy? Is that what it really means, or does it mean something different? I think it means something different. I think it means that you actually consider, what does that look like for me to enjoy this opportunity with the people in my life? If, for example, you have no desire to spend time with family, what would it look like for you to communicate that and say, there's always tension, there's always fights, there's always this conflict that I have to endure, and it doesn't fill up my soul? What does it look like for you to perhaps say, this year I'm gonna surround myself with people that actually bring me joy and that actually encourage me? And how can I apply myself to that setting? For others, it might be, I feel compelled to buy presents for everyone on my list, because if I don't, then they'll think badly of me. Well, that's a fantastic thing to do, especially if you're able to do it, if you have the resources to do it, and if you have the desire. But if you're feeling compelled, if you're feeling like you have to do it because this is your obligation, despite the fact that you may not feel like it, don't you think it detracts from the heart of why you're doing that in the first place? Wouldn't it be far better to go and buy or spend money on presents because you really, really want to do this for someone, as opposed to because you have to? When you have to, it just takes away from that heart of why you're applying yourself to it in the first place, right? Ollie, my friend, good to see you. Hello, HPD. Nice to have you. What does that look like for you, though, to be able to say, I'm doing this because I love doing this, right? And even if you love to do it, you're able to do it as well, too. Able to do it. It's an important consideration when you're able to apply yourself to do something. Sometimes I have a great desire to do things, especially for my kids, for example, but I don't have the resources. Do I want to apply myself necessarily solely only legitimate at Christmas time? You can do this any time of the year, anytime. And so, what would it look like for me to say, I would love to, but maybe I can't do it right now? However, I'm going to do it when I'm able to. Maybe that might be in June when I save up or have the expendable resources to do that. What does it look like for us to give ourselves permission to say, hey, this is the expectation, but I don't have to fulfill that expectation because that's an expectation that isn't my own. It might be the culture's expectation at large, but if I'm not resonating with it, if it doesn't fill me with joy and happiness, how can I give myself that permission to say, hey, I don't have to fulfill on this. Say, what is going to fill my cup this time? This is where awareness of oneself is really critical, friends. This is where it's really helpful to say, what is it that's going to fill my cup? What is it that's going to give me that sense of hell yes, because I get to do this instead of because I have to? I wanted to address this topic today, a few days from Christmas, to maybe give some of you that sense that you have options to consider that expand your choices to be able to say yay or nay, and to see either of those responses as legitimate. Don't buy into the don't buy into the pressure that everyone else is aligning with, that leaves them dissatisfied and exhausted and grumpy. But consider what your happiness looks like. To get to your happiness, however, you first of all have to be aware of who you are and what serves you well. Maybe you can, maybe you can't apply yourself in these ways that are culturally expected this season. But especially if you're unable to, can I encourage you to do like me and say, not this year, I'm going to do something different. I'm going to do something different where I'm going to look after me. I'm going to look after me by way of saying, what's going to bring me happiness? Maybe I'm just going to enjoy time with people that I enjoy spending time with this year. And I'm not going to be compelled by the expectations of others to say, you have to be here for this or that. Maybe I'm not going to buy gifts to those that I really want to. Something that's affordable and feasible. Friends, give yourself permission this holiday season to relax, to enjoy, and to have some great memories. I will see you tomorrow on episode 117. Bye for now.